Hello everyone, welcome to ASP.NET Core MVC tutorial class. Um, my name is Rajesh Thagarajan and I'll be walking you through this beginner's course, and we'll be building a small application. Um, it's a student app, and let's get to the tutorial. Okay, what's the objectives of the course? First thing is the introduction to the ASP.NET Core, and then we'll look at the installation of Visual Studio 2019. Along with it, we'll install the Sqlserver, and then we will register at Azure, which is a cloud platform where we deploy the application in the cloud rather than deploying it in local IaaS. And the next thing is the MVC architecture. It's a model view controller architecture, so that's how we designed this app. So we'll look into the details of that one. And the last thing is we'll build a sample application in ASP.NET Core MVC and publish it to Azure. Okay, so what is .NET Core? It's a cross-platform open source framework. It's basically, bottom line is it can run independent of the platform. It doesn't need to be on Windows. It can run on Mac and Unix. And open source framework, so which means where you can download it from GitHub and then you can extend it out. So that's what you can download the .NET Core SDK and run the applications independent of Visual Studio. So there you don't need a Visual Studio. You can just download the SDK, get the binaries, and then you can run create an app right from the command prompt of Windows. So again, as I mentioned earlier, it's you can create a .NET Core apps for Windows, Mac, or Linux. And ASP.NET Core, you can build web APIs and web apps. So in this tutorial, we're going to create a web app. The next thing is the ASP.NET easily integrates with the client-side frameworks such as Blazor, Angular, React, and Bootstrap. By default, we have the Razor view. That's your that's what we'll be using in the course. However, you can extend it with those frameworks, which would be which can deliver much more valuable things, rather than using the Razor. Last thing, not least, is the ASP.NET 4.x versus Core. So earlier versions from 2, 3, 4, 4.5, even 5, I believe. Those are like those are dependent on those frameworks pretty much depend upon the hardware IaaS server. Microsoft, whereas the Core is more of a cross-platform open source framework, so you can deploy it not necessarily in IaaS but in other Linux server too. So first thing, let's start with the installation of the Visual Studio and Sqlserver. So I want to Google in here, so try to open try to get the Visual Studio 2019. Let's go in this site. So that gives you the community, professional, enterprise, and you see that this is a free download, and these are like free trials which would after 30 days or so you might have to buy it out. So I would rather recommend get the communication that kind of gives you pretty much all the resources to build the application. So once you download it, just go ahead and install, and it will be a simple, straightforward installation. Okay, so once you're done with that, Sqlserver 2019, again, that's the just get back here, just do it on Sqlserver 2019 download. Let me go on this one. Let me go on the other one. I just want to get the download page directly. Okay, so you have the Sqlserver on the Azure, on the edge, and premises. Okay, so we just go through down, you would see download a free specialized edition of Developer Express. just get the developer version. That is much more features, and then you can do a lot more things in that one, and it's free. So get the thing downloaded. And key things, make sure that you note down the the admin user while installing the SQL Server. It's typically SA, and then make sure you note down the password. These two will be essential, like for logging into the SQL Server. Okay, so once you get that thing installed, few things, make sure that go to services and make sure the SQL Server is running. Yeah, make sure that that thing is running. The other thing is you might have to, configuration manager. Yeah, so that gives you the, that you can start it up from here up to, so make sure you can start up in the SQL Server configuration manager. So either way, you can go here or there to start it up and, shut it down. So, okay, so next session is like, what is Azure? Azure is a cloud computing service from Microsoft for building, testing, deploying, and managing applications and services at their data centers. Okay, so you don't have to host a server, you don't have to get the server and then, install the IaaS, none of those things. So cloud is where, you have the share, you basically share the resources from the server, so multiple instances can be deployed in the server, and your bottom line is you share the space, and then and then the corresponding resources, the processor and the memory and all those stuff. So that's what cloud is. And then okay, so next thing is Azure registration. So go to this site again. This is the last thing you need to do. Go to the portal.azure.com. So since if you look at that one, I'm already signed in. But if you log it in, let me try to open a different browser in here. Okay, so that gives you the welcome to Azure and all the stuff. So here you start with a free trial, and that gives you $200 of free credit to the Azure products, plus 12 months of popular free services. So if you walk through that thing, try to register and to get a domain in the Azure, and you might have to enter the credit card details to pick up a data plan, but you won't be charged unless you go over the data usage. So that's pretty much the first session. So let me take a quick break, and then I'll get back to you in a few minutes. Hey, welcome back to the ASP.NET MVC core application 1. So let's look at the MVC architecture. So as you could see, there is a request from the user that hits the server, IaaS server, and you hit the controller, and then the view, and then the model. So controller is your starting point, and the model is based on here. As you can see, it's based on the database model. Model can be, it could be a database, or it could be external services, or anything. So, and view is the one that is rendered. So that's the overall architecture view of the MVC. So bottom line is, we will see how the how the navigation flows through in our first project when you hit the controller, and how does the view gets rendered using the razor page. Okay, let's open the Visual Studio. Okay, so let's continue to create a new project. Okay, so here you do have the options to create a console app, which is the default of .NET Core, or you can do a web application, or you can do a Blazor app. You can build a library. So here in this class, our course, let's build a ASP.NET Core application. So choose that one and hit the next. Okay, so let's give a project name. Let's say my student app. Oh, did I miss something? Yeah. Let's say it's my student app. Okay, and look at the location where this app is going into. It's going to that folder. And okay, so here we can build an empty application, or we can build an API or a web application, or web application with a model view controller. I mean, to get the insight, I would rather go with the model view controller, so you get the template rather than just building an empty application. And if you can see on the right side, there's authentication. You could be a no authentication or individual user account that you can set up either in the Azure, or you can even set it up locally, the school accounts or Windows authentication. So let's in this course we'll just go with just a no authentication, and just go ahead and create the application. Okay, so there we have the our first application called My Student App. On the right side, you see the Solution Explorer. So on the left side, you would see the Server Explorer if we did have a server connection in there, and then here is your default overview of that. So basically, this is nothing but the if you highlight, you'll say .cs project student app. So that's the project we just created, as part of the solution. So a solution, and then that's a project. A solution is a .sln file, and a project is the the project is the part of the application as part of the solution. So you can have multiple projects within the within this application. Let's go back in here. So in here, so let's look at the connected services. So if you have any service dependencies, you would see here. And then when you try to publish this to Azure or local IaaS, those information you could set up in here. So now let's navigate through all the folders in here. Don't worry about all the information in here. Let's highlight only the properties or information that we typically need to know. Project, this is a project, as I mentioned, my student app. So it has all the files that are compiled into an executable or library or a website. And then you have some of the source documentation, images, data files, everything in there. And typically project files that I said, right, it's a, I'm sorry, it's a .cspg. If you look at that one, it is of the Visual C project file. I believe it has to be, let's open, see if I can open it with any other editor in here. Let's open it with the Okay, it doesn't give all the detailed information. So it's a, I thought we could use it up. We can now check it out in a .xml file. So that's the project file. And let's look at the, the solution, right? So what is solution? Solution is like a container where you could have multiple projects, so where you could build the information, and its extension will be like a solution file is .sln, and there is like based on the users who's developing the project, you will have a .aseo file which gets developed once you set up some breakpoints or any other settings. So that's like a solution user options file. And let's go to the rest of the folders in here. So we have the properties file. Properties, basically you have the launch setting.json. So this is this includes the Visual Studio's profiles of debug settings, and also this can determine like what kind of environment are you in. So in here we say, hey, ASP.NET Core environment is a development environment. So basically it's like a sort of a settings file where you set up some properties for the application. Then we go to the www root folder. So here all the static information like on JavaScript, that you needed, in a project, or the style sheets, or any other libraries you need for the projects, those get, added up in here. On top of this, you could add your own, you can create your own folder, if you bring in any other libraries from any other source, you could add it up in here. So it's basically in simple terms, this is just a library, where you can bring in any JavaScripts or any other custom scripts or fonts, things like that. So now let's go to the next one. As the next one is the controller. Okay, so we talked about MVC project, right? So next three things are the key things of this MVC application. Starting one is the controller, and then goes the model, and the last one is the view. So as in this folder hierarchy, controller is the one that you hit when you run the project, okay? And then and the models is how the model is basically the information that is getting model is the source of the information, and view is the one that renders the information. So we didn't have anything by default in this one, in this application so far. We'll come to that one. Before that, let's delve into a couple more files up in here. So the other thing is you have app settings.json. Okay, so I think until .NET Core, before ASP.NET 4.x or 3.x, those I'm sorry, those bundles use configuration settings, which is web.config, which is like a XML, and now the app settings is in JSON. So here, pretty much mostly you might have the I'm sorry, mostly you will have some connection settings and log settings. So you see some logging information here. So you'll have you can set up some connection information in here too. Okay. Now, and then next thing is the program.cs. So this is your starting point. So this is the program that that kind of runs in automatically when this application is initiated. So we'll come back to that one. As you can see, this has two methods, build and run, and those getting executed when we run the application. We'll come to that a little later. And The next thing is the startup.cs. So startup. So as you could see, there's three methods. There's a startup, and then there's a configuration services, and then configure. So this startup class gets triggered when the application is launched. So it's more of like a replacement for global data, ASAX, if you have done earlier .NET Web Application. The configure service, right? Two things. If you look at that one, there's a configure service, and then there's a configure. So configure services method, this is to typically used to configure the database connection, and this is called at the runtime when the application starts. And then there's a configure method to specify how the application responds to HTTP requests. The key thing in here is like you can define the environment, and then the endpoints on how the routing happens. And the last thing is let me see one more thing in here. Yeah, okay, so here in this configuration it says is development, so it kind of identifies if it is a development environment or not. This we earlier looked up as part of this I believe part of the www root. Let's see the properties in here. Open that. Yeah, sorry. So that is defined in the properties of the project. So if you look at that debug option in here, so here you have the ASP.NET Core environment, defined. So here we mention as the development. So typically you would have the environment set up for development or production. So that just gives you the highlights of the Solution Explorer with the with the objects in the Solution Explorer. So mostly in the project, the ones that we are really concerned about is the controller models and views. That's the one. Once we have the configuration set up and done, those three are the areas we mostly mess up with. Okay. That ends the session, and and then we'll take a short break here, and we'll start the new session. Hey, welcome back. So now we're going to build the student app. We already went through the all the objects in the My Student app in the Solution Explorer and the project. So the very first thing is to me, hey, if you need to create a web application, let's start with the database. Okay. Very first thing is how do we connect to the database? Okay. So let's go in and try to open the database. Okay. So very first thing is when you open the SQL Server, here I have a server name that says local DB MySQL DB. So this is part of the SQL Express that get installed along with the SQL Server. Gets installed along with the Visual Studio, or you can connect directly to the local server. So which you could do by going by the dot. Okay. So, and this is the where when you install the SQL Server, I asked you, if you remember way back on the on the first training episode, you would see the login ID as CSA and the corresponding password. I asked you to note it down. So either you can connect to this one, or you can connect to the local database. So this is part of this gets installed along with the Visual Studio. I believe if you go back to if you go back here and look up the Server Explorer, and then you see that that one, sorry, this one. So if you go to the SQL Server Object Explorer, and then you look at the local DB MS SQL Server, so that's the one, and then you see the database. You would see all these things. Okay. So how does this gets installed right along with the Visual Studio installation, and this is SQL Express, not the SQL Server. So what I would recommend is I would recommend to go ahead and create a rather than going with this one SQL Express, I would rather go in and connect it to the SQL Server. So you can just put in you can either do local, or you can just put dot. Okay, it's up to you. And then you put the login and then the password. And that's it. And if you look at that one, I mean, these are my databases, but don't worry about that. We will be creating the databases in this whole project. Okay. So let's pass on for a second, and we'll get back into the next session. Thank you. Hey, welcome back. So now we're going to build the student app. We already went through the all the objects in the My Student app in the Solution Explorer and the project. So the very first thing is to me, hey, if you need to create a web application, let's start with the database. Okay. Very first thing is how do we connect to the database? Okay. So let's go in and try to open the database. Okay. So very first thing is when you open the SQL Server, here I have a server name that says local DB MySQL DB. So this is part of the SQL Express that get installed along with the SQL Server. It gets installed along with the Visual Studio. Or you can connect directly to the local server, so which you could do by going by the dot. Okay, so and this is the where when you install the SQL Server, I asked you, if you remember way back on the first training episode, you would see the login ID as CSA and the corresponding password. I asked you to note it down. So either you can connect to this one, or you can connect to the local database. So this is part of this gets installed along with the Visual Studio. I believe if you go back to if you go back here and look up the Server Explorer, and then you see that that one, sorry, this one. So if you go to the SQL Server Object Explorer, and then you look at the local DB MS SQL Server, so that's the one, and then you see the database. You would see all these things. Okay. So how does this gets installed right along with the Visual Studio installation, and this is SQL Express, not the SQL Server. So What I would recommend is I would recommend to go ahead and create a, rather than going with this one, SQL Express, I would rather go in and connect it to the, SQL server. So you can just put in, you can either do local or you can just put dot. Okay, it's up to you. And then you put the login and then the password. That's it. And if you look at that one, I mean, these are my databases, but don't worry about that. We will be creating the databases in this whole project. Okay. So let's pass on for a second, and we'll get back into the next session. Thank you. Hey, hey everyone. Welcome back to this session. So in the last session, I just left it as connecting to the database, and yeah, you can do the SQL Studio, or for the SQL Server or Express, you can look at it up right here, and you can connect it here too. The one thing you might have to check is like if this server is running or not. I mean, if you're going with the SQL Express, you could probably do something like SQL local DB, info, and then you can try to connect it to the server, SQL server, and yeah, that's the thing. And it states it says state is running, so you could even you can do a stop, and then you can do a start from here too. Okay, so yeah, so and then come back and check it up in here. Okay, so anyway, in this one, we are not doing, we are trying to go with the SQL, not the Express. We are actually going to the, SQL Server. So, let's leave this for now. Okay, so at this point in time, we are ready to go, and, we are ready to go and create the model, and create the table. So that's I would say that's the first step in in the design step. So before that, so how do we access the database? So first thing is entity framework. So entity framework is the one where you could do a data access. You can you can perform a data access using the model. And so model is like the gateway. It's kind of a made up of entity classes and the context objects to which you can create a session with the database, and then through that database context, it allows you to query and save data. So let's begin that by creating. First thing is let's install the entity framework. So a couple of things you could do. You could go here and say, hey, manage nugget packages. Okay, let's install the packages like Microsoft. Yeah, there we have. We do have the I think two things we need to install, like the SQL Server and the entity framework tools. I believe if we do install the entity framework core SQL. Oh, jeez. let's install it in the project. And then for this particular solution, my student tab, there, if you look at the installation, there is a lot of releases. Okay, there's a stable release, last stable release, and then preview releases, and then pre-release. I would recommend to not go with the pre-release. I would always recommend to go with the either the stable release or preview release. So I'm going to install the preview release 7.1. Okay, so we got the entity frame and Sqlserver installed. The next thing you have to install is the tools version. So yeah, so pretty much choose the same kind of version that you chose the other one too. So okay, so we got both the Sqlserver and as well as the tools released. That's a good thing. Okay, and let me close this one too. Okay, let's start our creating the models. So first thing is, as you might have previewed the, let's start with the add new item. Let's create the school model. So I would say, hey, okay, so that creates a empty model. At this time, let's create one more called student. Okay, so we got both the models. Okay, so let's create the school first. Okay, so let us see. Okay, so we created this class school with these properties: school ID, school name, school district, city, state, and country. Let's do the same for the student class. Okay, so we got both the classes ready. So let's take a short break, and we'll come back to the next session. Hey, welcome back. So in the last session, we created the two classes. If you remember that, student and school. Okay, and we just left it at that one. So, however, this is our base to create the tables. However, we don't have anything like keys, right? So a table without the keys, it's like a, it's, to me, it's like a waste table. Okay, so if you look at that one, I want to define the key, the student ID. But if you look at that one, those comes under the namespace system component model data annotations. Okay, so I added the data annotations. So data annotations is primarily the key thing for the class, where you kind of set some properties, like one of them saying, hey, I want this student ID to be the key. Let's add a couple of data annotations here. So I don't want anybody entering a first name, leave the first name empty. So let's say, hey, I could mark this as I'm sorry, required I could say, hey, error message. Okay, so I'm just saying, hey, this is a data annotation saying, hey, this is a, this first name has to be entered. So that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, it's not if, it's required. Okay, the other thing saying, hey, let's say you want to be, you want this, first name can be maximum like 30 characters. So you could say, hey, string length and say, there we go, error message equal to okay. So see, these are some of the data annotations. So so primarily, the key thing is like make sure that keys are defined, keys are defined for the properties. Okay, so in this one, student ID is our key. And I'm going to leave it as that time. Leave it this for right now. And one of the last thing you see is the collection. School IDs are collection. Collections, similar to the IEnumerable. But the bottom line is, I collection can be used to do a couple of things. You can add, delete, and add, remove, and update. So for now we'll skip this one. We'll come back to this later. Okay. So the main thing at this one is like, hopefully you got the idea of data annotations. Marking them as some of the key required fields, and then any other validations you need to perform at that level. So those are the two things I added up in here. So let's go back to the school. Okay, let's do the same. Let me copy it from here. It's much easier. Okay, so we got the most of the properties done here. So we have the two classes done. Now the next step is getting them to the database. Okay, so let's have a short break here, and we'll be back in a second. Hi, welcome back to the session. So at the last session, we kind of left where we created the, we created these two classes, which is ready to be built as a table. So what are the key things? First thing is we have to get the, classes ready. That's the first step, and then we got to install this tool. In the package manager console, to deploy these, to deploy these objects to the database, and we do have that already installed. So if you go to the NuGet package manager and go to the package manager console, you would see the package manager console. And the next thing is, hey, do the migrations. So very first step I would do is, hey, add migration. I would say initial create. Okay, the build failed. Oh, okay. So first thing is, if we see that the build failed, the reason being we haven't set up that database context. Okay, so that's a missing piece. Let's go ahead and do that one. Okay, so we should be able to create the database context. So that's the reason the build failed. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and create a folder called database. And let's add up the sorry. Let's create the database content, call them as application database context. Okay, so one of the key things that we need to, two things we need to use is the, let's start with the entity framework. And then let's use up the models in here. Okay, and set up the database context. Okay, so that's the database context. You need to set it up to connect with the database. Don't worry about that for now. We'll come back to that, in detail later. So the other thing is you need to get the dataset property. So let's create that. So for each entity set, you need to create a dataset property. So let's do that. We do have what we have the student, right? And let's call that as students. The other thing is to set we have the school, right? Yeah. Let's call schools and then we've got the okay, so basically all we did is two things. One is that we set up the database context that by deriving from the entity framework DB context. Okay, so the second thing we did is create the dataset property for each entity set. Okay, in this case is school and students. Okay, so each corresponds to the database table, and so when the database is created, these tables have the same name as the dataset property names. So let's the next thing we need to do is okay, how do we register this context? So okay, we created the database context, right? So how do we implement that? Okay, so let's go to let's go to start.cs. Okay, we already talked about the configure services. Okay, and this is where ASP.NET Core implements a dependency injection. So we have to make the these services for the database connection getting registered as a dependency injection. So let's do that right here. So I'm going to add the okay. So that's a default connection, application DB context. So if you see that it says the namespace is not found, so it's easier. So let's click it up and say, hey, let's do the application database constant. Okay. And same goes here. Okay. So those namespaces will be automatically getting added up in here. Okay. Good. So what else we miss? So two things. So we created the DB context, and then we configured the services. The last thing we need to do is make the connection string. So we set up the, we say get the connection string of default string, but we haven't set up the connection string. So that's the last thing we need to do. Come to the app settings, this JSON. Okay, and let's save it up. Okay. Yeah, we'll get into the details of that one. So, so the last thing is the in the JSON file, you set up the database to MyStudent app, and you make sure it's a trusted connection, and let these properties be true. Okay, so those are the key things to those are the key things to get the connection up and running. So, make sure we get the property set up, and then we set up the database context, and then once we have the context ready, we have the we have to register the context, and that's where you set it up as the configure services. And the last thing you do is open the JSON and make sure that you have the connection string to the database. So we pretty much did all of the stuff. Let's go ahead and let's say we can able to create the add migration. Build failed again. Let me go ahead and check the error. Let's check it out. Okay, so build failed. I was like looking up. I was looking up why the build failed. So bottom line is, first thing is you got to make sure that you rebuild the solution. Whenever the build happens, that will give you to say, hey, when it is rebuilding, it says, hey, one thing failed. So you look at the error list in here, it says, hey, oops, sorry. um, I kind of mistyped in here, so that is one thing. Oh, that is the one thing. So let's before we try to build it, let's try to rebuild and see if we run up with any errors. Okay, so we're good now. So let's go back and say try to do the add migration. Here is the thing, if you look at that, I put a verbose keyword in here, so anytime if you run into some issues, you can type in verbose to see if you get any details. Actually, I didn't get much details. So bottom line is, before you do any migration, make sure you rebuild the solution to see if there is any error, okay? And then you go back and do the add migration. Oh, okay, so it created the script for doing the add migration. So so if you look at that, on the solution explorer, we will see something called migration folder now. Okay, and then if you look at that one, it kind of builds a script to create the table. If you see that one, it says, hey, I want to create a table for students, and then it created the script for that one, and it did the same for schools. Awesome. So that's what the entity framework is all about. Cool. Once you have the model ready, it can build the structure to build a database. So let's go ahead and before we do that, let's validate the so that is the thing we connected. So we don't have however, these are the my other test database, so don't worry about that. So let's go ahead and say, hey, update database. Okay, it should have updated by now. Let's refresh it again. There we go. We got the My Student app. Okay, so okay. And you see that one. So if you look at this one, we do have the schools and we have the students. You can, let's say, select 1,000 rows. Okay, so it ran that one at this time, or you can run execute one more time. So it doesn't have any data, but at least we got the table done. Along with it, you have the migration history. So anytime through the entity framework you make any migrations, those will be recorded in the migration history. Okay, cool. Hey, welcome back to tutorial on creating the ASP.NET Core MVC web application. So here is a sequence of steps to create the MVC Core web application. So first thing is the installing the entity framework nugget packages. If you remember that, we installed 2 packages. Let me show you that. Okay, so that's a one entity framework with the Sqlserver and tools. So that's the first thing. Then we created the data model. So student and school. Those are the 2 models we created. Then we created the database context to connect to the database. Then we need to configure the database context with the dependency injection during the application startup. So, and the next thing is the create the connection string to the database in app settings to JSON. That is the key, to set up the connection thing. Okay, so those are the steps we have done so far. Now the next step is to create the controller to do the CRUD. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's come in here. Let's come to the controller and say, hey, add a controller. So here is a set of controllers. You say you can create a empty, or you can do a read-write actions. You see MVC controller with actions to create, read, update, delete, and list entities, and MVC controllers with the views using entity form with action and razor views to create, read, update, delete, and list entities from there. Okay, so the difference is this one doesn't have the view with it just creates the action, and this one is a complete entity framework with also the views to create, read, delete, and list the entities. Okay, let me go with this one because always it's good to go with these one, so you can see what the framework created and you can modify and change it to whatever the way you want to. Okay, so let me go ahead with this one. And so here's the thing. So here is the model class. So let's create how about we start with the school. Okay, so I would say school, that's a model I want to choose, and the data context class is my student database that we created out, and it's up to you to generate the views, to do the layout page, and here we could override the layout page with this one if we if we had one. So for right now, let's leave it as empty, and the controller name is schools controller. Okay, just have to wait a minute to get the build the project. Okay, there we have. Okay, before we get into the details of that, let's go ahead and create the other controller also for student. Okay. Okay, there we have. So we have two controllers created. In addition to the home controller and in addition to the home controller, we have the school controller and we have the student controller. And if you, on a hindsight, if you look at it, you have like you have the index. Okay, you have the details. Okay, and then you have the create. Okay, and then the create with the post, get and post. We'll go through the details on that one, and then we have the edit. Okay, and then we have the post of that edit. And we have the delete option. Okay. So pretty much this is something to do with the CRUD. So CRUD is like the create, read, update, and delete. So all the methods are out here. So this is so this would cover that one. So let's go ahead and run the application. Okay, welcome back. So as I said, last thing is we created the two controllers, schools and student, right? We checked it out. Those are the and both of them has the CRUD operations. Okay, so which basically have the create, read, update, delete options. Okay, before and then both. There is two things on that one. There is a get and then the post. Okay, we'll look into that details. But before that, uh, let's run the application first. Okay, and see what's coming out there. Okay. Oh, yeah. So we got the first time the application running. It's been a long time. We didn't run the application. So that's the student app, and then we have the home controller, and then there is a privacy uh, page which kind of lists the details. However, we don't see the other information. Where is our school and where is the students? Those things are not there, even though we created the controller. When we created the controller, it created. We correspondingly created the views along with it. If you look at that one, we have the schools view. You can look at the index, for example. So that is a view that is getting automatically created, and that should be rendered. But we don't see that yet. Okay. The reason being, we haven't looked at the shared. So this is the layout. You know that this is a layout that will be shared. It's a kind of a template that kind of getting shared in. So in here, if you look at this one, we didn't have the you have the home controller in here with the actions of index and privacy, but we didn't see our student or school controller in here. So let's go ahead and create that one. Let's go ahead and create this one here. So yeah, I'm not going to type in the whole thing. So let's go ahead and copy and paste. So all we're doing is, hey, we're just adding the students controller, and then so that is the controller. So we are calling the students controller, and within that we're calling the index action. Okay, and same goes to we're calling the schools controller, and we're calling the index action. Okay, so what are these ones? Okay, these are all tag helpers. Okay, rather than saying, hey, call this, it used to be, the syntax used to be different in the earlier version. So calling the saying this form, this controller and this action, these tag helpers are much easier. So you exactly tell which controller to call, and within the controller, as we know, there is a CRUD operation, right? Create, read, update, and add. So we're saying in this one, we're just calling the default, which is like read. I'm sorry, display. Okay, I'm sorry, read. So that's the action we're calling in. So let's go ahead and run this application and see what we're getting here. There we go. So we have the we have the two models in here. We have the students in here. Let's click on the student, and we have the schools also here. Awesome. So let's go ahead and create a school in here. Let's go ahead and create a school. Let's name here. I'm going to since I have created something, so let's create a school in here. I'm going to say, hey, school district, Katie, Texas, USA. Okay, let's create that. See that right there, the information getting displayed, and let's do the another one. Okay, let's do the Duncan school. Let's put that. Texas. Oh, sorry. That's mine. Let's delete. I'm sorry. Let's edit that. should be Tom Kane. Pick the same thing. Let's say simple range. Let's add one more one. And let's go. Let's say it's full district thing. Okay, so we got these 3 schools done. Let's go ahead and add some students. Okay. I think I already have some name in here. Let's go ahead with that one. 15, let's say 18th grade. Let's go ahead and say 12 years. This is 7th grade. And then 17, so it's 10th grade, and one last one. Kevin, Stellar, 14, let's put it on the 9, okay. See that? So, we got 2 models in here, student and schools, and for each one of them, if you look at that one, it basically, using the CRUD operation, we automatically created the edit, where you can edit the information, you can look at the details in there, and you can even delete the option. Okay, so automatically, rather than we coding it out for each of the option, it just created on its own. So that's the beauty of adding a CRUD entity model, without doing it with the CRUD entity model rather than creating an empty one. Okay. Hey, welcome back. So we created 2 controllers so far, and we use the entity framework to create the database contacts and create the tables, and then we ran the we created the controller with the CRUD operation, and then that kind of using the entity framework, so that kind of completed the application with for the schools and students. Okay, and we ran the application. We are able to enter the data for those 2 tables. Now, so 2 things we might have to add up in here is the 2 things we add up is the subjects and then the enrollment. Okay, so now we'll do that all together now, and that will be a good refresher. So let's start with the so this is the starting point again. Let's add the controller for the subjects. Okay. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Let's start at the as we always start with the model. Let's start up with a new model. So let's go ahead and create the class on subjects. Okay, there we have. Okay, so first thing first. So let's create the let's create the class with the 2 properties. Okay, and let's make this as annotations with the key, and then make sure that you click on the data annotation. That gets added automatically. Let's actually display this you know, with the annotation flow. Display the subject name is I'm sorry, subject name and display name. There we go. Okay, and the next model we want to add is the enrollment. So I'm going to add new. Okay, let's do the same thing. I'm not going to type in the whole thing. I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay, there we go. So we got the so you see that right after we don't have the don't have the data annotations. That's why we have the thing. Let me see, we had the data annotations in here in the subjects. Now we got it in the enrollment. Okay, so when we created all these properties, enrollment, student ID, and subject ID and details. Awesome. Okay, so if we go back to this thing, so we create the data model, we create the database context, which we already have. Configure the database concept with dependency including. Okay, we already have that, and create the connection string. We already have that. Okay, I haven't mentioned this one. Before we do the controller and all the stuff, we might have to add this to the database. So let's go back and say let's go to the package manager console. If you remember that, so when we added something, we would say add migration. Okay, so initial create. Let's say we created that two classes in here, right? Two models in here. Okay, so let's say hey, added students, and I'll say student and the enrollment. Okay. Okay, as you can see that it created that and set up the migrations information. Let's look at the so that's a new migration. Let's see if we did create the information. So okay, where are the subjects? You don't see the subjects. Is that, one second, let me check that out. Yeah, welcome back. So some reason it didn't, it didn't make the changes. I don't see this new. Let's go ahead and save this project, and then let's you know most likely it could be something to do with the rebuilding the project. Let's rebuild the solution. Okay, zero file and zero script. Let's try it out one more time. We're going to add the student enrollment. Let's see if that adds it up. Oh, it's used in existing migration. So let's say add new tables. Let's start that way. Okay, so that's the one new one created. Does it have? Let's look at that one, latest one. I'm not seeing the subjects, right? Okay, I'm not seeing the subjects as well as the enrollment. Let's see what could be the issue here. Okay, welcome back. Sorry, I just looked up and then it's my issue. So I should have created the database context. Okay, so somehow that information is missed. So that is the source of the thing. Okay, so let's go back and create the dataset for so that will be the subjects, and that should be the one for the enrollment, right? Let's see, change this to subjects, and let's change that to enrollment. Enrollments. Okay. There we go. Now let's try to add it up. Always try to come up with a new name or add a new migration. Okay, so that's the new migration. So let's look at there we go. See that new table enrollment. So I think same will be there for subjects. Awesome. So that's a missing piece. So make sure that anytime you make add a new table, that should be in the database context. Okay. Next thing is let's go ahead and query the database. So not this one. Was that the one? Yeah. So let's look at that one. Let's look at the tables. Okay. So you see the schools and students, but you don't see the subjects and the enrollment. So let's get back here and say update database. Okay, it's done. Let's come back here and let's refresh them. There you go. Yeah, the subjects and the other enrollments. Awesome. So pretty much, we got the most of the thing done. So every time, look at this migration folder. Anytime you make a changes to the database or you add a new table, or delete what you add a new table or you make a change to the table, all this will be a part of this migration. Every time he creates a new migration set. Okay, so yeah, so let's take a break and we'll come back to the next session. Okay, so welcome back. So now let's go ahead and run the application. Okay, we still have only students and students and schools. We don't have the subjects and the enrollment. Let's close it out. Okay, let's go ahead and create the new controller. Okay. Let's go with that entity framework. And let's go with the subjects. Okay, let's add it up. Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and do the last one. Let's do the enrollment. Okay, awesome. Let's run the application one more time. Oh, again, we didn't add the subjects and the enrollments in the layout, right? So that's why you didn't see that up in here. Let's go ahead and quickly do that one. Close this out. Let's come back to the layout here. let's see it up in here. Okay, we talked about what these tag helpers are. Um, we have a lot more tag helpers. We'll just we'll walk through that. For right now, just hold on and just see that two things only we're going to do. What controller, that's the starting point, right? And within the controller, what action we're calling. And most times we just call the index, okay? So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, there we have the subjects. Let's enter some subjects in here. Okay, so already had that, so let's create math. Let's do some signs here. Let's do in English. Okay, history. Social science. Let's create the last one, music. Okay. Got it. So now let's go to the enrollments. Okay, create new. Oh, how do I know which student I need to pick, which subject? I need to write up, and then and what details I need to enroll in. So I don't have enough information in here. Which student and what subject is enrolling and all this information. So let's get back to the list for now. Okay, so this one information is not right. Okay, so what can we do about getting around this problem? So that will be our next session. So hi guys, welcome back. So the last thing we did is we have be able to bring out all the models, and then we ran the application, and we are able to create data for some of the data for some of the models, right? So one thing we didn't do is the enrollment. The reason is it'll be a little complicated, so I will walk you through that. Before that, okay, let's look up something, right? Let's go back to our thing where we have the subjects. Don't worry about this one. That's the one. Let me go ahead and run here. Let's go ahead and run this one. Start with schools, easiest one. Okay, so we have the schools, and then you see how this information are rendered here. Typically, conventionally, you would see all these things whenever we have a web page. The web page will be a HTML, right? That's the bottom line. So if you go right click on that and say which view page source, okay, there we see that HTML with all this information in here. Okay, you have the navigation, you have the div classes, and then the header HTML, and then head and body, and and then the table. Okay, all the HTML tags, right? So let's get back into there. So how are we getting all these things created? Okay, so that's where the Razor engine comes in. So this is the Razor engine view. So this one, each one is based out of a model. So in here, what is a model? I have the school as a model. Okay, so dynamically the CRUD operation created this school-based model, and then and then it's a enumerable collection. Okay, so we'll look into that one, and then along with that you have the view data. um, View data that kind of displays the title as the index. Okay, and these tag helpers, we'll look at it in detail. So there's a view data and there is a view bag, and that we will be using much more than this one. And then again, it's pretty much the rest of them is like these are all tag helpers, HTML tag helpers for display name for the model, the school names, and and then there is for each to go through each items in the model and display the corresponding value, and that's how we get that thing. So all these are all like all these are all let's start this one. All these are all part of the Razor engine. So this gets decoded in the server, and that's how we get the HTML rendering. So let's look at what is this Razor engine. Okay, so you get an idea of what is that thing. So Razor View, basically it's a markup for embedding the server code into the web page. Okay, so we build the Razor engine as a .chtml, and so when we get the output delivered as a HTML. Okay, so Razor supports C#, and then they uses the @ symbol. That's a markup to deliver the HTML output. So some other things like hey, add datetime.now will render the daytime, current datetime. Okay. So here look at some of the expressions where you can say, hey, variable game equal to new cricket India 11. Okay, so these are the expressions you can create it up in the Razor engine, and you can do some HTML helpers like HTML raw.span hello world, and that will render the span hello world. Okay, pretty fast, simple. So Razor engine has conditional like if else on switch, and then looping for each while, do while, and then there is a try catch also. Okay, so let's look at these tag helpers, right? These are the much more where you would see, hey, what is this information that I'm doing over here. Okay. So you have here it's the route ID, you have the actions, so what are these ones? Okay, that's the first thing that comes into your mind. So let's look at a few of them. Okay, so ASP action and ASP controller. Okay, so this is the controller that's getting called, and then the corresponding action. So what is this? How does this getting converted? So this is the generated HTML. So basically, it'll convert it to the href and say, hey, this is the controller is home, and then the corresponding action is index. So that's basically what we looked up already, the HTML, by looking at the view source, and that's what it would do. These are the so that's bottom line is Razor View is more like a tag. It kind of makes easier with the tag helpers to code, and then generates a corresponding HTML. Okay. The other thing you would have noticed is the mapping route. We haven't changed and played with it. We can eventually, in the next course or so, we'll be doing some more than the default, home and index and ID. So if you look at this one, you would have the controller as home, and then action is the index, and then there is a optional one with the ID, right? So let's look at this one. ASP controller home, index, and then there is a route ID, model dot student ID. We already checked what the model is. So model delivers from the model only. You pick up the values, and then you plug it into the tag helpers. You plugged it into the Razor markups. Okay, to deliver the values, right? So this one, let's say its value is 12. So so it'll be calling this this home controller, and then it'll be calling the action index, and then it will be it will be passing a value of 12. So that's how the razor view tag helpers work. And we also checked what is the razor views all about. So it's all about doing the markup for embedding the server code into the web page. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, welcome back. And so we pretty much went through all these basic ones, students, schools, and subjects. They're pretty straightforward. You can delete, edit, delete, and review the details. These are all the CRUD operations, including create, edit, delete, details, and delete, right? So CRUD operations right in here. So, we haven't went to the details of what operations, what method gets called each time. For example, when you do create new, it kind of does it kind of creates a get operation in here, okay, and then you see the create button in here where you create that subject. This will enable a post operation. Okay, so we'll get to the details later. For right now is enrollments, right? Enrollment is like when I say create new, I wouldn't know what student. Wouldn't that be an easy one if we have a list box in here saying pick up the student ID and then pick up the corresponding subject and then the details. But even doing that, when I saw the student ID, I wouldn't know what's a student, which student is really it is. How do I, if it is saying student ID is 10, how do I know that is really the student I want to pick it up and enroll them into that one? So those are the questions we have. So let's see how we can address them. So the very first thing is let's create so far we created the models based out of the tables that we're going to create, and we created the corresponding models and then we enroll. So now let's create a model. Okay, I'm going to do that as assigned course. Okay, I want to fill in the whole thing, so I'm going to cut a paste here. Okay. So here I have the enrollment ID, first name, last name, subject name, and details. Okay. But if you look at that one, I am not going to add the, if you look at the earlier ones, right, let's look at the school where you have that, and then you tie it up to the component model with the data annotations, right? That's how we tie it up with the database to create them as a table, right? But here, in this case, I'm not going to create a table of the assigned courses, okay? Because we already have the enrollment, but we want to view this information, enrollment name and which student and last name and subject name, all those things. Okay, so that's the bottom line. So I'm just going to create a class of assigned courses, and then let's go back to how we can view this information. So let's go back to the enrollment controller. Okay, so come back here. Okay, so index, right? Very first thing is want to do is I want to um, create a list, right? We already checked out that we don't have the students displayed as a list. We just have it as text box, and you don't know what's a student ID or what to do. So let's create a list in here. Um, okay. So obviously you need that. My student app models. Okay, that should bring it up. Okay, so what is the reason that it doesn't pick it up? Changes. What is it's students? Okay, why is that not listing? My student app, that models. Oh, it's a student, sorry. So let's come back here. It's not students, it's a student. Okay, that's my fault. Okay, so and then, but we have the subjects in here, so let's do that thing again. Let's create a list with the subjects. Let's make this as a subject list. Okay, so all we did is you can look up that context. Okay, so it's a database set of the students, and then we're getting the list of that. Okay, so that list we can, if we get this list tied up to the field, data field. So that's how we can list up the information. So the next thing is I'm going to do a link query. Link is it's similar to the SQL queries, but link is part of the it's part of the Microsoft delivered entity that to simplify expression. Okay, so let me do a link in here. Okay. Was that was enrollment? Okay, so now I set it up in the consent. Yeah, okay, so that's a problem. So enrollments. Okay, student data. Okay. Okay, so this is a link query. So what is the purpose of this link query? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, right, I want to list up, I don't want to go by the, I don't want to by the student ID, and I want all the information to be displayed, okay, by the the first name, the last name, the subject, and then the details. Okay, so I'm creating a link query where I'm saying, from the enrollments list, you join with the students based on the student ID, and then you get the student list, and then similar to the subject, you connect with the subject ID. Let's see, I think, yeah, and then you get the subject to list. Okay, so of all the things you create, you get the assigned course, right? That's the class we just saw. Okay, where you have the enrollment ID, first name, last name, subject name, and last name. So just to look up the, if you take a look at the link query, you should be able to figure this out. Okay, now, so I assign that to the variable enrollment list, and then I'm passing this view, passing this enrollment list as a list. Okay, now take a look at the, let's go to the view. Okay, but the view is enumerable, based on the model enrollments, but that's not the, that's not the. Actually, let's simplify this one. Let's even change this to say, hey, I want to pass this as a, there we go. Okay, we're just passing the, the view result into a to list. Okay, so basically it's a simple list which is just a enumerable one. So let's go back to the view. Okay, and let's change even the let's even change this from enumerable, let's change that to iList. Okay, and then we have the models, we get the assigned courses. Okay, for right now, let's take it out, this tag helpers, and let's do this tags in here. Okay, and similarly, we want to display the enrollment ID, first name, last name, subject name, and details. So let's change the whole thing. Along with it, let me change a few other things, and then we'll walk through what those things are. Okay. Okay, so what did I change? So we get the item enrollment ID before, now we get the first name, we get the last name, we get the subject name and details. The reason we get it, because we getting this, we get the list from the assigned courses, right? And that particular model that we pass from the assigned courses is basically this information, okay? And that's why you are listing up this information in here. And along with that, we have like along with that, we have these three buttons, right? We have the edit, and then information, and then last thing we have is delete, okay? So you might have wondered one thing. I mean, we already know what this routing ID is, right? These are all like route ID. These are the values that getting passed as item.enrollment ID. Same along goes here. But the new thing is this class with the button primary, and then with the style color, and then there is iClass SFA edit. So we will come back to that one little little later. Let's run this one first. Let's go to the enrollments now. So look at this one. We changed before we had, now we have the first name, last name, subject name, and details. Okay, let's even try to see. Oh, we still don't have the student ID coming in as a list box. Let's get back to that one. Hi, so we checked up the enrollments, and then we tried to create a new enrollment, and we couldn't pick the right student ID and subject ID because they're not displaying the student. We just have to manually know what's a student ID, and then we have to know what the subject ID. So that's a constraint, right? We need a list of the students that we need to pick it from, and we need to get the list of the subjects so that they have to get enrolled in. So let's see how do we get that thing accomplished. Okay, so come back here in the create list. In the create action. Let's do this one. Let's add up a list similar to the one we did earlier. So here. So I'm creating a list of student, I'm creating a list of subjects, and if you look at that one, they are from the model student and subjects. Now, so we created the list and we need to populate the list. So this is where the link comes in. So we're creating a student list, and then we're creating a student list, and then we are creating the student list with the student ID. That is the that's the index 0, and then we're creating the first name that's to be selected in the list. Okay, so then we're going to we are doing a view bag, and then assigning the student list to the view bag. So what is view bag? Okay, let's look up okay, so view bag is a key thing, right? So it's a dynamic type property that we can set up in the controller. It can be any data types, it can be a string, integer, list, or any other data set also. So view bag, if you look at that here, I'm setting a name as John in the controller, and in the view, I can pull that a name to be displayed in the view. So typically view bags are the ones that it passes the information controller to the view and not the other way around. Okay, So why do we need view bags? Okay, so not all the time we pass the information. I mean, in addition, I would not say same as the model. So in addition to the model that we have, any the controller passing to the view, you might need some additional information, and that's where viewback comes into picture, where you can dynamically pass the information. Okay, so let's go back in the student tab. So here we did this one. We're creating the student list, and let's go ahead and see. Let's set it up, and then let's see, run it up and see what's up. Oh, I think we're still missing one other piece. Yeah, so one other piece we're missing out here. First thing is we created the student list, we didn't create the subject list, so let's go ahead and create the subject list also. It's pretty much same as creating the student list and then adding it to the viewback subject list. Now we got this information, we're passing the viewback to this view. However, we don't know if we added those list up in here. So looking at it, I don't think we have the we had the password information added up in here for the validation. So let's go ahead and add it up in here. So here we have right now as a input field where we have the student ID. Let's replace the input, the input control. Let's change that to a select control and say for. Okay. Okay, so let's see if we got everything correct in here. Oh. Okay. ID, and then we got the first name, and then select. Okay, so yeah, so we are selecting from that view bag, and then we are saying we will mark it as a select list, and then from the view bag we got it up. You see that student ID and first name. So first name will be the one that we are selecting it, and the one that getting stored is the student ID. So that's how you pass the information. So let's do the same for the subject ID. Okay. So again, this is a tag helper for ASP items. We already talked through some of the tag helpers. So ASP items, this is the one that you can get a list of items, INAurable items, to create a drop-down list of the subject IDs. So let's see if we got everything done here. Let's run it out. We've got some build errors in here. Let's see what's the error. Okay, subject. Start this one. Subject ID does not contain definition of subject system contain definition of subject ID. Okay. Let's rebuild it. Yeah, the one thing I forgot to mention is always when you make a change, try to rebuild, okay, before you, run it out. That's much, that's a better way rather than just running it out and see the error. So. Okay, we got a null expire. Okay, we got an exception thrown here saying system.null is sent to an instance of the agent. So we got a null thrown up here. So what did we miss? Okay, let's take a look. Start this one. Okay, so we haven't done any debugging. Let's go ahead and set up a debugging in here. Breakpoint in here. Okay, so that way we know exactly what's going on. So okay, let's look at the enrollment site. Say create new one, and let's say okay. So that gets null. Why? Getting the subject list. Count 7. We're getting a count 7 here. It's a count 7. Okay, so that is passing the information. Okay, let's continue. So that is a subject list, and what is missing here? object name not set to reference instance of the object. Okay, let me check this out. 1 minute. Okay, so we'll try to create a new enrollment. We ran into an issue saying, null reference. So let's go ahead and create one I just fixed, and we will try to see what's the issue here. Okay, I put a, let's continue here. Okay, so there we have the select of the student ID, and if you look at that, there is a name to that, and then you can, so let me go ahead and do the okay, there we go. If you look at these ones, these have some, some buttons to edit, and they are not displaying it right because the reason is I'll explain that. For now, don't worry about it. Let's create one more. Let's remove this so we don't get stuck up in there again. Let's clear the breakpoints. Should be able to do. Okay, so that's pretty much we have it. I didn't explain you the reason why we ran into the issue. So in the view, right, you go to the view, and it was pretty much stuck in this subject. And the reason being, these should match exactly, exactly the same as the one that the list is based out of. Okay, so I had a caps ID, which is subject ID, but that doesn't match with what we have in the database. So you make sure that those are the, if we are picking up any information, it does match with the database. Okay, so that should resolve the issue. So we got that. One thing we saw that the buttons are like, not, it doesn't reflect correctly. So I believe, okay, one thing is like, we can add external fonts. Okay, so if you look at this root, if you remember that, that's where we have some of the libraries. So one of the things that I would like to introduce is the, fontawesome. So let's go ahead and download the fontawesome. Okay. Okay, so I already downloaded that one, so go ahead and download the fontawesome from here. And if you look up your download folders, downloads, that's where you get that information. And once you downloaded that, come back here, um, go ahead and look at the downloads here. You get the zip file, so you can do an extract of that. Downloads in fontawesome, okay. Oh, so since I already downloaded here, I can get in here, and that's a thing. So let's go ahead and copy this whole thing, and let's go back to this front tab, and let's create a folder in here. Let's paste all the stuff in here. Should probably take a minute. So okay, we got it. So we got the fontawesome added in here. Let's go ahead and use that font. So basically you typically have to add it up in the shared layout. Okay. Okay, you see that one? That's where you pretty much add the style sheet. So let's add the let's add the fontawesome in here. So okay, let's run it and then we'll see what's happening. Okay, there we have. So you see that thing? Since we added the font, that's our new edit, that's our info, and then there's a delete. So so that's how. So how do we this happen? So we added the fontawesome, we included that, and and if you come back to the view, let's come back to the, let's stop it up in here. Let's come back to the index on the enrollments. Okay, remember the class I was talking about earlier, and then we say, hey, skip it off here. That's a thing. That's a class I added, saying button primary, and then you could say, hey, how what's the size you want on that one. So here we picked up size of 2. You can do 3, 4, whatever you want to, and then I picked a color of tomato. And then that's a class for the edit. Okay, so that's how you pick the edit symbol, and that's how you pick the info signal. Info inside the button, and then that's trash is the for the delete. Okay, so these are the classes that you derive from those fontawesome. So It's pretty straightforward and simple. Okay, let's pause here for a second. Hi guys, welcome back. So the last thing we did is, we are able to bring out all the models, and then we ran the application, and we are able to create data for some of the uh, uh, data for some of the models, right? Um, so one thing we didn't do is the enrollment. The reason is it'll be a little complicated, so I will walk you through that. Before that, okay, let's look up something, right? So let's go back to our thing where we have the subjects. Don't worry about this one. That's the one. Let me go ahead and run here. Let's go ahead and run this one. Start with schools, easiest one. Okay, so we have the schools, and then you see how this information are rendered here. Um, Typically, conventionally, you would see all these things whenever we have a web page. The web page would be a HTML, right? That's the bottom line. So if you go right click on that and say which view page source, okay, there we see that HTML with all this information in here. Okay, so you have the navigation, you have the div classes, and then the header HTML, and then head and body, and uh, and then the table. Okay, all the HTML tags, right? So let's get back into there. So how are we getting all these things created? Okay, so that's where that's where the Razor engine comes in. So this is the Razor engine view. So this one, each one is based out of a model. So in here, what is a model? I have the school as a model. Okay, so dynamically the CRUD operation created this school-based model, and then and then it's a enumerable collection. Okay, so we'll look into that one, and then along with that you have the view data. That kind of displays the title as the index. Okay, and these tag helpers we'll look at it in detail. So there's a view data and there is a view bag, and that we will be using much more than this one. And then again, it's pretty much the rest of them is like these are all tag helpers, HTML tag helpers for display name for the model, the school names, and and then there is for each to go through each items in the model and display the corresponding value, and that's how we get that thing. So all these are all like all these are all let's start this one. All these are all part of the Razor engine. So this gets decoded in the server, and that's how we get the HTML rendering. So let's look at what is this Razor engine. Okay, so you get an idea of what is that thing. So Razor View basically it's a markup for embedding the server code into the web page. Okay, so we build the Razor engine as a .chtml, and so when we get the output delivered as a HTML. Okay, so Razor supports C#, and then they uses the @ symbol. That's a markup to deliver the HTML output. So some other things like hey, add datetime.now will render the daytime current datetime. Okay, So here, look at some of the expressions where you can say, hey, variable game equal to new cricket India 11. Okay, so these are the expressions you can create it up in the Reason engine, and you can do some HTML helpers like HTML raw.span hello world, and that will render the span hello world. Okay, pretty fast, simple. So Razor engine has conditional like if else on switch, and then looping for each while, do while, and then there is a try catch also. Okay, so let's look at these tag helpers, right? These are the much more where you would see, hey, what is this information that I'm doing over here. Okay. So you have here, it's the route ID, you have the actions, so what are these ones? Okay, that's the first thing that comes into your mind. So let's look at a few of them. Okay, so ASP action and ASP controller. Okay, so this is the controller that's getting called, and then the corresponding action. So what is this? How does this getting converted? So this is the generated HTML. So basically, it'll convert it to the href and say, hey, this is the controller is home, and then the corresponding action is index. So that's basically, that's what we looked up already, the HTML, by looking at the view source, and that's what it would do. These are the, so that's bottom line is Razor is more like a tag, it kind of makes easier with the tag helpers to code, and then generates a corresponding HTML. Okay. The other thing you would have noticed is the mapping route. We haven't changed and played with it. We can eventually, in the next course or so, we'll be doing some more than the default, home and index and ID. So if you look at this one, you would have the controller as home, and then action is the index, and then there is a optional one with the ID, right? So let's look at this one. ASP controller home, index, and then there is a route ID, model dot student ID. We already checked what the model is. So model delivers from the model only. You pick up the values, and then you plug it into the tag helpers. I mean, you plugged it into the Razor markups, okay, to deliver the values, right? So this one, let's say its value is 12. So so it'll be calling this, this home controller, and then it'll be calling the action index, and then it will be, it will be passing a value of 12. So that's how the Razor view tag helpers work, and we also checked, what is the Razor views all about. So it's all about, doing the markup, for embedding the server code into the web page. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, so we pretty much got the application up and running, so everything is good. So the one last thing we need to do is, hey, I don't want to run this in IaaS in my local drive. I want to publish to the cloud, Azure, and then, start up the app. So hopefully, as we when we started this application, building the application, we kind of looked up, how to register on the, Azure account. Okay. So hope you recall that. If not, make sure that you go to the portal.azure.com and try to sign up in there, and do a registration. Okay. So let's go to now publish. Let's try to publish and see if we run into any issues. Okay. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to publish it to the Azure. Okay, it's an app survey. So this one, right, whether you registered as a when you register the account, you would have picked up the server, whether it's a Windows or Linux, so make sure that whatever you picked up, choose the same one. I picked up Windows, so I'm going to go with the Windows. And so subscription. So if you are in that one, you would know the subscription. You know. So let me see if I do have. Okay. Not in here. Let's see if I have it in there. Let's close on this one. In here. Okay. Okay, look at that one. My subscription is name is Azure subscription. So if you're already subscribed and you're logged in, that's what it would reflect. Okay, so I leave that as it is, and let's leave the view as a resource group, and then that's the one that I have set up. As you could see. Azure VM. So that's the resource group. I'm going to pick it up. So okay. So you can create a new one, but I am. Let me see if I want to do a new one. I mean, let's create a new Azure app service. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to remove this one. Let's give it a name. Oh, my student app, it's not available. So I'm going to say my student app. New. Okay. And the hosting plan, that's what you had to, whichever the hosting plan. So when I started it playing around, so that's a hosting plan I created. So let's leave it at that. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do a create. Okay, so that is done. Let's finish that. Woohoo, we got that site. Okay, let's try to publish this. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so you would run into this error if you don't have followed few things. So um, let's see what happened, when we try to publish it out. Okay, so when we try to publish it out, it kind of failed in. So good thing. I mean, we always consistently learn when something is go wrong. Okay, so it's a good thing that it failed. So let's see what could be the parameters that could have been wrong. Okay, let's look at the deployment mode. It's a frame dependent. Okay, let's edit this deployment mode. Um, you know, mark it up self-contained. The reason being that Azure, I believe, doesn't support the latest version. So always, if you have those binaries in your application, so make sure that the deployment mode is self-contained. Okay, and database. Um, okay, the for the entity framework migration, you make sure that let's take a look at that server database is my stone type trusted connection. Okay, make sure this apply this migration and publish. If you don't have that, it won't have the context in there. Okay, so save that. Let's see if that makes any difference. Ooh, it ran up with some issues. Let's take a look at that issues in detail. Oh, okay. So I missed out the configuration for Sqlserver. We did configure the, um, you know, we did configure the deployment, the framework, the cloud, but we missed the database connection here. Let's go ahead and connect that. So it will be it's up to you to do a Azure, database, or it's SQL Server. So I would rather typically, um, you know, um, go with it for now. Let's go with the Azure SQL database. Um, okay, let's create the new database here. Okay. Okay, so this is the one you have to have a database admin say username and then the password. This one you might have done when you did the registration. So let me check my password in here. Okay, I believe my password. I don't know. I think. Let's see. Okay, so we got that thing done. Let's go to next. Okay, database connection. Let's leave it at that one, default connection. That's what draw. Okay, for now, set the connection synchronic, keep it none. Click on that one, make sure that database name and caret log, the user ID, password, I mean, you could probably copy that, and you can, check it out and keep it up in a notepad or something. So that way you can validate if all the, information, so things are right. So anyway, go ahead and do the next. And okay, yeah, make sure those things are selected and let's finish. Okay, so okay, look at that one. Now the SQL database is configured. Hopefully we'll be able to publish it correctly this time. Okay, failed again. What's that thing? Make sure the database connection with server is correct. What did we miss in the database thing? So let me check the password correctly. Okay, so we had an issue. So let's take a look at that. Try to identify the password. Okay, so here I logged into my account. So click on the SQL databases, and then that's the app you're developing. Click on that one, and let's say you want to do the query. You can select the query, and let's get that thing. Let's type in admin. Sorry. Okay, that's the reason. So we got the password fail. Let me try the password here. Oh, okay. So we are able to log in. So I think we made the password incorrect. But I'm not seeing any tables in here. So we'll come back and look at that one. But before that, let's go back and make sure that have that right. So we got that thing. Let's try to republish and wait. Yeah, welcome back. So we did see the we try to publish out and then we run into issues. So make sure that we have the database connection correct in here. So you can go to the portal.azure.com and look at the database. So here's our student tab, open that. You can query the database. So let's go ahead and do the query on that. Open the query editor. Let me try the user. Okay, that was the issue, I think. So let's try the 1, 2, 3 different password in here. I remember the password correctly. Okay. Okay, there we got it. So that's where we're able to, log into the database. So let's get back to the studio. Okay, and let's make sure that let's go to the publish. Okay, let's make sure. Let's edit this dependency. Tab, the next. Make sure that that thing is put in the right password. If you don't have that, you might run into issues. So, okay, let's do that. Okay, it's done. Okay, so let's republish it. Okay, we ran into the make sure database connection server is correct. I thought we did it correct. Okay, let's see what's missing in the database connection. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, come on, Azure, why do you not letting me? Okay, so let's see what's the issue in here. Okay, so I just missed one thing here. So when I looked at the database thing, the connection is just going to the local one. So that is a missing string. So always, when you connect it out, you have to give the right data source. So that was the issue. So let's let's go ahead and add that up in here. It's not the recording. I don't want to pass the password, so that's the reason I'm stopping it. Okay, so that's the thing. So make sure that your catalog or whatever should be, so it should be the same name as your app name. We have the My Student app and that one, and you have to create you have to make sure that it's not the local IAS to provide the dot. So that has to be the right server name that you created. Okay, so that should be pretty good enough. Let's try to publish it again. Let's see if that takes care of it. Okay, so finally we're able to get the application up and running. Look at that one. So My Student tab. Okay, and so oh, stepping more detail. Okay. Okay, so it ran into an issue. Let's check out what this issue could be. Okay, so we got the application up and running. So what was the issue? The issue we got is okay, so remember that we had the database connection connected. However, you always have to make sure that both the, you know, we have to make sure this database connection is correct, and that reflects as the same as the entity format. Okay, if one of them doesn't reflect the correct data source and then the database name and then the user ID and password, you would run into the issue. So two things, right? So one thing is like, hey, we make sure that we get the you know, Azure, go directly to the portal, make sure you can be able to connect to the database, and then you come back here and use your so that is the end of those things. The one thing that you know, we didn't go much into the details is the controller. So by default, if you look at that one, you know, this is a home controller, basically returning you. We don't have much in here. You have the index and privacy, and you have the home. I mean. And then you have the home controller. Okay, so where the initialization happens, and then you have the index and privacy. Let's look at the school controller. Okay, so controller is where you basically get the data set ready and pass it on to the view. So that's where most of the stuff is happening. So let's say, hey, you know, let's say I want to, you know, create let's say I want to create a school, right? So the first thing is you have to get that context. Okay, so we already went through how to create the database context, and then here in the constructor you kind of get the context application database construct and you initialize them. So that's the very first step. So you do this in the schools controller. So right after that you look into that. You make sure that for the context you do an add. Okay, and then you save the changes and then you redirect and you pass the index. Okay. Similar thing goes into edit. So the one thing in the edit is you want to find the the school that you want to edit. So that's what you think by the ID, and make sure that these parameters are passed in. The ID should be passed in. Okay, so and once you have that, you pass the information, the school variable to the view. Okay, so that's the bottom line. Once you explore this, you would figure it out. How the information flows in. So bottom line is any application, it is the controller is it's a starting point, and from the controller you derive the values from the model that you want to present into the view, and pass the model to the view, and the view presents the information. Okay, real world, there are most companies may replace the the razor view with the angular one. Okay, so so it could be dynamic too. So and anyway, so I'm going to conclude this course for now. I would wish good luck. So I haven't worked in .NET recently, so I might have missed something. I'll try to come up with the next presentation. I'll try to get those things properly ready. Okay. Thank you, and I would like you to give the feedback on it. If anything is negative, just comment it out, and I'll try to figure out the next time. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.